Have you ever noticed these hidden aliens in South Park? Known as the Visitors, these guys have been hiding in the background since the show's very first episode. And although they aren't in every episode, they've been spotted in at least 90, whether it's appearing as themselves or spotted on a poster or drawing. And besides from being a fun little South Park Easter egg, there's actually a few reasons as to why they're there. So in this video, we're going to talk about the mystery and the history of the Visitors in South Park.
Moo. Moo moo moo.
The town of South Park was inspired by creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone's small town childhood in Colorado, much like how Oregon inspired Matt Groening's Springfield and how New England inspired Seth MacFarlane's Quahog. But unlike those fictional towns, South Park is actually a real place. Nestled in the Valley of Colorado is a place called South Park, and within South Park is a town called Fairplay. And it's this town in particular that many fans believe was the true inspiration for the fictional South Park. So, growing up in Colorado, Trey and Matt used to hear all kinds of stories about how South Park was a hotbed for the strange and supernatural.
South Park was where everyone, growing up, all the stories would come were like, oh, did you hear they found another UFO? There's been all these cattle mutilations, and it was like, where? South Park.
In fact, there's a hugely famous UFO watchtower in Colorado, which is known as the Bermuda Triangle of the West. So it was only natural that they'd often hear tales about UFO sightings, Bigfoot, and other crazy things.
South Park to us was always the place where you would talk about there were UFO sightings, and just because it was just this weird place, you know, at the time that not many people lived, and so for us it was the place we would always talk about weird things happening, and we would go drive around South Park and look for the government base, the entrance to the government bases.
These stories stuck with the boys so much that when they made their first independent movie called Cannibal the Musical, they made sure to hide in a few aliens in the background of some shots. And this idea of a rural Colorado town plagued with the unusual was carried over into their first 1992 short entitled Jesus vs. Frosty, and then again in 1994 with Jesus vs. Santa. So when the time came for Trey and Matt to make their first pilot for South Park in 1996, they made sure to make the aliens the focal point of the story. Therefore, in both the unaired and the aired pilot, UFOs come down to Earth, abduct Cartman, and give him an anal probe.
Visitor! Totally! What? That wasn't a dream, Cartman!
Straight away, the guys wanted to firmly establish that South Park was a weird town where weird stuff happens. And by really leaning into the sci-fi aspect, it set their show apart from the likes of The Simpsons, which was a far more grounded animated series. Therefore, I found when looking back, the first season of South Park really had this X-Files kind of vibe to it, where every kind of supernatural creature can and does exist. There's the aliens in episode 1, the Scuzzlebutt monster in the 3rd, and then in the 5th they played around with genetic engineering by introducing mad scientist Dr. Mephisto. In the following episode, Death himself made an appearance, and then in episode 7 a spaceship crashed down to Earth and spread a zombie virus. And then in season 1 we also saw the introduction of Mr. Hanky, a literal magical talking poo. As well as Damien, the son of Satan, and Mecha Streisand. All of this supernatural sci-fi stuff really gave the location of South Park this rural yet otherworldly vibe, making the town a character in its own right, and the feeling that anything and everything can happen. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, the aliens didn't leave after this. Even in the intro, you can spot 5 of them and a UFO. These visitors continue to be hidden in the following episodes, sometimes multiple times in the same one. They appeared in 6 episodes in season 1, 15 episodes in season 2, and 8 episodes in season 3, also appearing 6 times in the South Park movie. According to the South Park Studios website, it was Eric Stow, the director of animation, who usually planted the aliens there at the last minute. That's if he remembered to. But despite them having a huge part in the first episode and cameoing numerous times afterward, the Visitors didn't really have an impact on the show for the longest time. And it wasn't until season 7's cancelled that they'd have a much more significant presence. The episode starts almost exactly like the pilot, with Cartman describing his dream where he's abducted by aliens. The boys then experience deja vu and realize that they've done this all before.
Wait a minute, this has all happened before. Yeah, this does seem really familiar.
And just like the first episode, a huge satellite springs out of Cartman's butt.
You know that feeling when you take a huge dump? Awesome.
So the boys then visit a scientist called Jeff Goldblum, who starts uncovering the truth about why the aliens put it there. The said aliens then burst in and start chasing the boys down before abducting them and taking them up to their spaceship. Also, side note, this was originally intended to be the show's 100th episode, but it actually ended up airing as its 97th. This is important because the plot revolves around the kids finding out that the Earth is an intergalactic reality TV show, a television show which is about to be cancelled after its 100th episode, and being cancelled in this case means demolishing the Earth. So the boys then have to convince the Jusians who control the network not to cancel the show, and then they decide to follow the network executives on their wild night out. And it's here where they're able to take some illicit photos of the pair engaging in some kinda whatever this is.
Oh yeah! Stick your finger in my thresher! Oh yeah, suck it! Suck that jag on!
So the boys are able to use these pictures to blackmail them into not cancelling the Earth. And so everything returns to normal by the end of the episode. Not only was this episode commenting on how a long-running show can suffer stagnation and reuse the same old storylines, but it also perfectly explains the whole Visitors Easter egg shtick, i.e. that they're in fact spying on the humans to make a television show the entire time. So, they were visiting Earth to 1. Keep a closer eye on their money-making stars, 2. Get closer film footage, and 3. To probably just cameo in the background of a successful TV show. Much like Arbed from Community in cameoing in Cougar Town. Maybe they just really love the show. The episode also has a direct reference to the background aliens in this scene right here, where a disguised visitor reveals itself. However, it's after this episode that the aliens' appearances became less and less until they stopped appearing altogether between seasons 15 and 24. This may be due to the fact that South Park was moving away from its more fantastical roots in the later seasons, as it pivoted more towards referencing political and topical discussions now, moving further away from the otherworldly and the supernatural. And don't get me wrong, it was still completely balls to the wall insane. But there just wasn't as much of a focus on the sci-fi aspect as there was in the earlier seasons. So maybe it was by this point where the aliens simply didn't have a place in South Park anymore. Or more likely, the creators just got bored of including them, like how they got bored of killing Kenny. Either way, we did get to see the visitors again in the South Park vaccination special, and are then seen again at the end celebrating that the lockdown is over. They also get a big part in the video game Stick of Truth, where the new kid is abducted and gets anal probed himself. And even though we hardly get to see the aliens anymore, they'll always remain an iconic part of South Park's history.